This is MJ. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an analyzer. Find all my work at mjmunoz.com. Welcome to Henshin Inspection Presents Going Ultra! Visit mjmunoz.com/GU for notes and links. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment to help me grow. So, I jumped into Ultraman Z, Episode 1. And then, looking in the comments, looking to make notes, I realized that Ultra Fight Galaxy, The Absolute Conspiracy, which has a dub up on Super Eye's official YouTube channel, actually leads into and kind of sets the stage for Ultraman Z. Now, I watched Ultra Fight Galaxy, The Absolute Conspiracy, and I have some thoughts on it. I'm going to talk about it for a little bit here, and then I will continue on with Ultraman Z Episode 1, kind of spoilers for the future or whatever. I already watched Ultraman Z Episode 1, like I said before. I liked it, and I think I'm going to watch the whole series. So you can look forward to me covering all of that on Going Ultra. And I'm sure, well, anyway, by the tenor of Ultra Fight Galaxy, it seems like it was a lot of setup and a lot of sizzle, and that a lot of what it set up is going to manifest somewhere else. I don't know if it'll be in other Ultraman series. I don't know if it'll be in other productions or in like further Ultra Fight Galaxy stories or what. But I was entertained by them immediately in the time while watching them, and I'm looking forward to continuing the story. I thought it was interesting. So I'm going to say this about Ultra Fight Galaxy, The Absolute Conspiracy specifically. It was interesting. It was a lot of characters all at once. I did, however, feel not overwhelmed by the amount of characters. It just, seeing all these Ultras together and knowing that they're from different time periods and different dimensions, and that there are these villains from different dimensions and stuff, and they talked about like the isotropic versions of, such and such character, Trigger and Belial. It got me thinking about like Ultraman society in general. So I think I'll save my observations and questions about the Land of Light, let's just say, for after. And right now I'll just kind of talk about the movie. So it was directed by Koichi Sakamoto. I have known of him for a long time. If you don't know, he did a bunch of Power Rangers direction in the United States, like 4 Power Rangers for it was, I think, more for Disney than for Saban, but it could have been like late Saban, but I don't remember now. Anyway, he also was involved with a lot of Ultraman stuff. He did a lot of cool stuff for Kamen Rider. He's got some... Well, anyway, some people don't like his directing style when it comes to women. I was observing him with Grigio and Princess, whatever her name is and stuff, while she was fighting, and I found nothing objectionable. He framed them as women. Grigio honestly does look a little weak, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. And anyway, there was a writer, a screenplay was written for this, and to me it was a little thin. It was a little thin as far as, basically the plot is this, that this guy, Absolute Tartarus, is going all around, causing all sorts of trouble, pulling together all sorts of Ultra enemies in order to serve this ultimate life form, Ultimia or something, that he serves, and he's preparing something and trying to get things ready, and I'm sure the Ultras are in his way. The Galaxy Rescue Force and whatever else they have are in the way of his, evil plots or whatever. So, that's fine. That makes sense that he would cause all this stuff, and it's kind of interesting that you've got this, kind of proactive villain who's setting all these things up to cause trouble for the Ultras in order to cause them to, die or become incapacitated, so that he can, execute his plan. And that's basically it. He sets that up. He goes to several different planets, several different timelines, I guess, or places throughout history, and like it almost looks like as certain villains or characters are about to be destroyed or defeated, he like teleports in, he swoops them out of there. A giant explosion happens, and the Ultras think that they've defeated them, but they've actually been carried here. And honestly, like, that plot was clear enough to get. What I don't get, the part that confuses me, is, are these Ultras all in one shared universe, or like is the Land of Light? Are they? Are they all in one shared universe? And if they are, how simple or complex is that? Because it almost feels to me like the Land of Light is this nexus that all the Ultras come from, and there's only like the one Land of Light, but that they kind of get dispersed to all these different places at all these different times for different reasons. Like there's a future Earth that they refer to. So I don't know if the Ultras are supposed to come from, thousands or, from eons ago, somewhere out in space. And maybe it's future Earth because they deal with, Einstein's theory of relativity and light speed travel in a way that makes sense. Or maybe they just teleport and they go beyond that. I don't know. Ultras fly in space, but I don't know how fast they fly or if any of that matters, because this is tokusatsu and it is more about the story being told and things like that than the details and the mechanics of the universe. This is, fantastical storytelling. It's not science fiction storytelling per se. So those sorts of things are questions I have. But yeah, the overall plot, it was simple and straightforward, and it was a good way to get all these Ultras together and have them fighting against this absolute Tartarus and more fighting against old enemies or enemies that should have been vanquished and long gone that he brought to them. But then he also corrupts Trigger and Belial, and I'm unfamiliar with Belial, but it's interesting because he basically spoils the plot for I think New Generation Heroes, which deals with Trigger, and then is it Ultraman Geed that deals with Belial specifically? It kind of seems like that, which is funny. But if you're an Ultra fan, you would know this stuff. And if you're not, like me, if you're new to it, it can get you enticed. And honestly, it kind of did make me want to watch more. Because it was interesting how much I felt sympathy for Belial and for Trigger. Or Trigger. Everybody says his name differently, it seems like. Absolute Tartarus is just an absolute bad guy, and there's no sympathy or redeeming nature to him just yet. Maybe those things can be worked in there at some point later, but that that doesn't seem to be the objective of this story, at least. And I'm interested to see this kingdom that's coming with his in the next bit of the story that he's in with Absolutian or whoever he serves. So I'm interested in seeing that. But it was a little thin. That's the basic plot of it. I basically described it. There were, I think, some interesting Ultra cameos, like Ultraman 80 is an old Ultraman. Ultraman Jonius looks like the old Ultraman cartoon character brought into live action, which is pretty amazing. And just being a Tokusatsu fan, being a Kamen Rider fan for like 11, 12 years now, or whatever it's been, I've seen Ultraman stuff in the periphery, and yeah, I know like kind of some of the references or allusions to stuff, but nothing real deep as far as lore is concerned or anything like that. So it was interesting for me to see all that stuff as like a sample platter type presentation. I don't feel like I really have anything else to say about the movie itself. Watching it split up in the different episodes was a little jarring. There was, recap, there was an opening song, an ending song each time. So at some point after watching like the first 4, maybe 5, I started skipping through so that I could just really watch the rest more as a movie. I had started off trying to do it as like an episode by episode type thing, but I realized they were scenes in a movie and it made more sense to just put them together. So I started to do that, but excuse me, other than that, I can't really think of anything else to say. The fights were good. It's Koichi Sakamoto, so the directing of the action is going to be pretty good. There were some fights where I was taken aback by how cool it was, honestly. So I mean, that was pretty cool. And yeah, so talking about Ultraman more broadly, and I'm going to try to stop doing this. I'm going to try to let this be the only time, except for the fact that in the next episode that you're about to hear on Ultraman Z, I do a lot of like speculating and talking about like, well, what is an Ultraman and how does this work and stuff like that. But just some real quick observations I made because of the diversity of Ultras that we got to see in this episode. I just wanted to kind of talk about the M78 Nebula or Galaxy or whatever it's called, and like just throw some thoughts out there because I don't really understand. Like, are all the Ultramans like just an organic species? Actually, I have like a slight criticism. The fact that they're always kaiju, or always kaiju size, always gigantic, how does that benefit anything? If you're a planet of giants and you have like giant cities that you live in, like, I don't know that makes sense. I almost think it makes more sense for Ultras to be able to grow to kaiju size, but to be more human size. But then again, it adds to them being alien if they're always gigantic. But then again, on some of the planets, they're gigantic. They're taller than the mountains around them and the hills around them and stuff. But I just don't know how that feels to me. I don't know that I like that. I don't know that it makes sense. And it might just be a style thing, and they had to make a decision: are these guys always giant or not? And then they said, well, yeah, they are. So then, all right, well, they're always giant. We can't. If we have to show that they're giant by putting them next to mountains and buildings and stuff, because if they're gianter, if the mountains are bigger than them, even though they're giants, you won't know that. So just as a matter of skill, you have to have mountains that are taller, or that the ultras are taller than just show that they're mountains. Even, and like if you're reusing sets and things like that for the alien, I get that, or for the alien worlds that you had from the Earth sets or whatever, I get that, but it's just kind of strange to me. And then the next thing is like all the not sexual, well, there is sexual dimorphism apparently, but there also isn't. But there's genotypes and phenotypes. So genotypes are what your genes say you should have, what kind of traits you should have. Then the phenotypes are how they're actually expressed. So all the ultras look kind of similar, which is well, anyway, I'm not going to touch on that. But like, how do they grow horns? How do they grow blades on their heads? How do they, like, the textures and like how much of what the ultras look like is clothing versus how much of it is their actual bodies? That's something that fascinates me, especially because like I think Ken and Belial, the lady that they were with, I didn't catch her name, I don't remember it. She had like hair, like pigtail type things hanging off of her head, but then like Elysian or Eusian, Princess Eusian, she didn't have that. And Sora doesn't have that, but Sora has like a mantle that she wears, and it's got this like almost like stained glass, like churchy type pattern thing. And when she has to protect the princess, she like projects that up out of her. So like, how much of the ultras, like, can they change their look at will because they're these beings of light? Or like, I don't know enough about the ultras, but like, are there ultra babies? There's ultra sun, there's ultra, I think Belial, one of them talked about like he had a son basically because it was like a clone, or it was like leftover of his DNA, but it was an altered clone, so it didn't look exactly like him. And he's like, oh, how ironic that I'm defeated by my son after searching for all this power, that my son gets this power that destroys whatever. That's interesting. But like, okay, so they've got cells, they've got DNA, they can be cloned. So everything that can be cloned can have children, or yeah, right? Right? You follow me there? Genetically speaking, scientifically speaking, if you can be cloned, you can be you can reproduce on your own as well, because that's what cloning is. Or anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But like, where's an ultra baby? How long do they take to live? Do we know anything about their lifespans? Why do they look so different? Why do some of them look so similar? Like if they all had like a base of silver skin, and then like there was purples and blues and reds and oranges and yellows and stuff like that, like I would almost buy it more, or I would have less issue with it. But there's so many ultras that are silver and red, and I get if that was like the Showa style, but like even the Kamen Riders didn't look that different, and the Super Sentai look very unique compared to one another. So you can see, like, they've all got the helmet and the gloves and the belt and the boots and the stuff like that, but there's a lot of variation in between them, and I just find it interesting that that the ultras don't. And the only thing I can think is like, these are their natural bodies, and it would make sense. Like if you had humans in loincloths, they look pretty similar. Like, oh yeah, that guy's darker, that guy's got higher cheekbones, this dude's really hairy, things like that. So I'm not mad at it. It's just, it really makes me curious, like, what is like the ultra society, and how does all this stuff function? It's just kind of a curiosity to me, and I hope some of those questions get answered. But as Ultraman Z is taking place on Earth, I doubt we'll get too much more insight into that, and maybe have to go back to the more classic Ultraman stuff over the years. Like in comics, over the decades, these things have been added and textured in, and until you've got a very complex, rich history of a character or a species or whatever. So those are just some kind of thoughts. Like, it doesn't really make sense about the kaiju. Like, kaiju says they're always gigantic, but like, why is that? Why isn't their planet, like, why aren't they giants when they come to Earth, but their planet is scaled so much larger than Earth that they're not giants there? Just like Superman isn't Superman when he's in his on Krypton. It's only when he comes here. But then again, if the giants weren't, if their planet was a different size, they'd have different gravity, so then they couldn't function necessarily as giants. But then again, does Tokusatsu take that into account? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't think so. That doesn't seem to be what Tokusatsu does. Anyway, that's I'm gonna let myself have one more comment about Ultraman Ribut, which is funny. My kids walked by. One of them reads well. The other two, one's learning and the other doesn't read at all. She's too young. and they said like Ultraman Ribut, like why is he called Ribut? And I said he's not Ribut, he's Reboot or I don't know. So it was just kind of funny the English spelling of Ribut, of Ultraman Ribut, kind of tickles me. Anyway, about Ribut, there was a really cool scene where he's getting trained by the other Ultras, by two of them, by Great and Powered, and he goes into like this mindscape of his inner world or something they call it, which was kind of neat. And in his inner world, in his mindscape, he's talking about like the ethos of an Ultraman and what it is, and he meditates on that, so to speak, and between that and the combat that he's in with them, sparring and training, he grows stronger and he like ascends to a new level, and he kind of transforms himself in that way. And it's interesting, the Ultras are always seem to be working on transforming. They're talking about getting better, getting stronger, things like that, and they're all these like ascended type beings, and it's kind of hard for me to understand how exactly they can grow and not grow. It might just be because this is all, pretty new to me, or it might be because I'm bringing in stuff from The Rise of Ultraman. It talks about them being these ascended beings. I don't know. I'd like a little more lore and a little more depth, and maybe Ultra Fight Galaxy isn't the place to look for that. But I'm not mad at it. I'm just, making observations and asking questions based on what I'm seeing. So anyway, like I said, I enjoyed it overall, but I'm definitely ready to get into Z and watch that as it's coming out and keep that coming out consistently. Hopefully you join me along for the ride as I enjoy that. It was, I liked, there was a little joke in there between Grigio and Zero where, oh yeah, Grigio, I got to talk about her. Well, yeah, I'm going to talk about her. Her fighting looked weak. I like the idea of Ultra Women being included, and it doesn't make sense to me that if there's Ultramen and if they're organic, there's these alien beings, that there wouldn't be Ultra Women, and that there wouldn't be any Ultra Women fighters too, especially if it's, it's tokusatsu, it's fantasy, it's this ascended, beings and these, different creatures. They don't apply by the same rules as, everything throughout the universe. So like things could be different and more interesting there. So why not have Ultra Women and Ultra Women who are, as competent fighters as the men? So Sora seemed okay. She had more defensive action. Princess Yusian, I believe was her name. She fought really well. She ended up having a fight towards the end of the episode, and it was really dope. And Grigio was working with her. When Grigio had her solo fight on Earth, though, I was very disappointed. It was very lackluster, and even in New Generation Heroes, the little bits with Grigio, they weren't really great. And I'm okay. Like, not all Ultras have to be fighters. Like Hikari is, I think did he end up fighting in the end? Anyway, he's like a scientist because he's not like, fighting a fighting champion or whatever. So that was interesting. And I'm okay with the diversity of the Ultras, but if Grigio is going to be an Ultra Warrior, then I want her to be an Ultra Warrior, and I want her fighting to be competent and to be at the appropriate level. And like I'm in support of it. I just think they need to do better, and I don't know if it's the actress, or I don't know if they're just not demanding a lot of her, or as far as like she can perform, but they're not asking her to perform, is what I'm saying. You follow me? So that's a little frustrating, but I don't know, because I like the Grigio design, and I like the idea of the character, how she's so peppy, and she's got these other brothers who are Ultras, and she's trying to like keep up with them a little bit. And even in Ultra Fight Galaxy, they end up like, a New Generation Heroes, they end up like blending together and I don't know, DNA digivolving or whatever it is that Ultras do, where they combine and combine their power into one, and it's like this. They're red and blue, or what is it? Well, they're Ultraman R and B, and she's their sister, so like they become RBG. It's like a really cool form. It's really neat, but I just don't get it. Why she's not like more of a competent fighter in these. So anyway, I've really gone over my mandate, over what I intended on doing and saying. But like I said, introductory episodes are always long for me, and I'm going to try to tighten it up as I go through the rest of Ultraman Z. Look forward to me getting out the Ultraman Z episode 1 pretty soon after this, and then maybe 2 after that, and then from then on they'll be like a week apart because I'll be following the release schedule of the show that Super Eye is doing on their official YouTube channel. So look forward to that. Again, check out mgmunoz.com/gu for this show, for this series of reviews, and check it out for all the other stuff I do. I'm doing a lot over there. I'm actually trying to work on, I'm not doing it at the moment, but I am developing a script for a graphic novel about a tokusatsu trio of heroes who's basically like, what if a single Super Sentai character, a Kamen Rider, and an Ultra, analogs of all those, ended up teaming up together. What if they ended up teaming up together? That's what I'm working on. I'd like to do a graphic novel. I'd love to in Tokutember. My September is going to be very, very, very busy this year in 2021. I just realized that the other day, but I wanted to participate in Tokutember. I don't know that I'm going to be able to. And I really wanted to coincide the like a launch campaign / GoFundMe type campaign for raising money for this Tokusatsu graphic novel. But I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it. So, well, I'm going to work towards it, but my September is going to be crazy because of family and religious obligations and stuff. So I don't know that I'll be able to do it, but we will see what happens. But hopefully I'll get to that. But you can scroll around the website and look for Tokutember, look at all the stuff I've done. I did draw some Ultraman inspired stuff over there in Tokutember 2020, so you might enjoy that. Anyway, with that, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for reals this time, and I'm going to ask you to remember that you don't have to shout Henshin to be a hero.